Hey friends, this is Sean Washburn from YourExcelTutor.com, and you're watching 30 Tips in 30 Days. And today, for day 22, we're just going to talk about some of the options you have for how you can customize Excel. And everyone loves to customize, no matter what you have in life, your phone, your computer, your car, whatever it is, people like to customize, accessorize, and everything. So we like that freedom of being able to change things to make it how we like to use it. So I'm just going to show you a few of those today. And if you're in Excel and you go to, and this will look different depending on older versions, but if you go to the File menu here, and we go down to Options, this dialog box pops up. So each of these tabs over here is going to have different options you can look through. We'll just kind of touch on a few of them. Some of the main ones here under the General tab, you'll see right off, we talked about this in a previous tip about how when you open a new file, it usually has 3 tabs down here. And you can change that right here. So include this many sheets. I have mine set at 1. I know it doesn't make a difference, but there's part of me who feels like I'm wasting extra sheets if I have it at 3 and I don't use the other 2, So I usually start with 1. I figure if I need another one, I'll go ahead and add it, but that's how I like it. You can change your font size, things like that in here, your username, and some of the other options. You can just, peruse some of these. If you go to the Formulas tab, this is one you wouldn't necessarily want to change this, but this is an option you can get to also in the Formulas tab in the ribbon, but you can change how things are calculated. So by default, when you put a formula in, it automatically calculates it, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can set it to manual, and when you're in that mode, it'll only calculate when you tell it to calculate. So I've used that before. If I have, maybe I have like a circular reference where one cell depends on another cell, depends on another cell, and I'm trying to figure something out, I'll change it to manual, but I don't recommend anyone using it unless you know what you're doing, because I've left it on manual before, or I've opened a file that had it set to manual. I couldn't figure out why things weren't updating, and it's because it wasn't set on automatic. So again, I wouldn't mess with that, just to show though that is an option in here. And some of these other ones you can kind of, what I would do is take a file, play around with some of these and see which ones, just take some time to look through all these and see what's in here. But that's one that I wanted to touch on there. If you go to proofing, this one's kind of cool. So if you've used any Office products, you know that when you type something in, auto-correcting is everywhere today, on your phone, on your computer. Pretty soon we're not going to know how to actually spell things or use proper grammar on our own. It's almost like trying to do calculations without a calculator. Our math fails us sometimes. But just to show you where that comes from, if you go into this proofing and there's this autocorrect options here, you can click on that and you'll see some of these checkboxes that they already have, and then you'll see this master list down here of things that are already in its list of autocorrect. So things that are commonly autocorrected and just how it's set up. Now if you find that there's something that you type in and you don't want it to autocorrect, if you find it in here, you can get rid of it. So you could hit delete and it won't do that anymore. So maybe you have a name of a company or whatever, and it's just going to be quicker for you to just not have it autocorrect, and then you'll change it when you need to. You can do that. You can also add in, it's almost a way to have like shortcut keys. So you could create your own here. You could just type in something and whatever it is, and then have that mean something else, and then hit add. And that could just kind of almost be like a form of shorthand. If you ever use shorthand, I took a shorthand class. I found it took me longer to do that, probably because it was only a 9-week class. But anyway, you can create your own shortcuts like this, so that it's the things it already has in there are for autocorrecting when people misspell stuff. But you can also use it for, maybe you want to type 3 letters in and have it expand that into a whole, it could be a phrase or a word or whatever. So that's one use for that. So that could be useful. I've used that at times when there's been something that I type in a lot and I want to save myself some time. And so as soon as I type it in, it's going to expand it. You just got to be careful, because if you use 3 letters that are part of a word, then as soon as it types those 3 letters, and you hit if you hit space or whatever, it's gonna kick those out. So anyway, play around with that. That's a good one. The save function in here, we haven't really gotten into this much. We will in another lesson coming up. But there's different formats. By default, the default format is .xlsx. That's just your run-of-the-mill Excel file. But if you click on here, you'll see there's tons of different ways. One that I use a lot is a macro-enabled workbook. So I use a lot of macros. I probably could change this. I leave it at XLSS because most of my files are that way. But I could probably change it to this, and that way if I wanted to add a macro at any time, I'm already saving it that way. And you can save it however you want, but this is the default that it's going to use if you don't choose anything else. And you can go back in here, this is where it saves your auto recovery files, how often to auto recover, all these things are down here. So you can look through there. You got language, spelling, proofreading, and then advanced. So there's a ton of them in the advanced. And one I always thought was kind of cool. If you're in Excel and you're in a cell and you type a formula and click enter, or you type in a number and click enter or whatever, it's going to go down to the next cell below it. But that's just because that's the setting that's in here. You can actually change that here. One, you could uncheck this and it would stay in that cell. So you type something. I use this for if I'm doing, maybe you want to use it as a calculator, and you want to type in a number and get a result. If you do this and uncheck this box, then it won't automatically go down to the next line. You can just keep typing in numbers. Or you can have it go to the right or to the left. I've only used down and to the right. I haven't really used up or left, but there could be a case where you'd want to use that, and that's an option. You can change your decimal points. There's a bunch of them in here. If you start scrolling down, you'll see any and every kind of default thing, and a lot of it may just you'll look at these check marks, these boxes, and say, wow, I didn't know that was something I could even change. It's just the way it's always been. And I'm big on being curious and trying to find out why things are. So this is kind of like the backside of finding out why things are, is you can find these options and see which ones you might be able to use to change the way things are. Just be careful with any of these that you change. Know that you've changed it and know the implications. So if you uncheck one of these, know what that's going to do to you in your file, and maybe it's something you're going to want to come back and check it again. Just know where you were when you did that. So hope you find that helpful, and just to show you that there are some things you can do like this to make your work quicker and easier and customize things like you like them. So thanks, and check back in tomorrow for another tip.